I just saw the analytics and noticed that the graph had spiked and is through the roof. So thank you to each and every one of you who is tuned in to C4CW, casting 495 celebrities worldwide. We've been working on some groundbreaking, unprecedented, super exciting research, development, analysis. So I have a prediction. You guys ready? I'm one Sir Grove, OSGOE. I have a prediction about emerging technology. So getting right to it, Google Glass. You ever heard of Google Glass? You ever heard of it? You ever heard of Google Glass? Well, if you haven't, Google it. Yeah, so if you have, today's date is 2 December 2019. It's the 2nd of December. The year is 2019, supposedly. And who knows, man? It could be something closer to, say, like 8100. But the point is, I am saying this to you because I know this is an absolute fact. It is a fact of reality. And I don't know anyone who's ever said this on YouTube, Google, the internet. So I'm saying it now. I'm going to share it with you. So I was in a program. I'm going to be very brief about the program that I was in. When I was at DOD as a civilian technical expert, that's what my DOD credentials say in the database. They're the ones who gave me that designation, civilian technical expert. As a U.S. defense contractor working at multiple military bases on military computer networks, after having grown up tinkering around with computers and learning to program at a very young age, under the age of 10 years old school code, procedural top-down, before object-oriented programming. We're talking about Objective-C, C, old school, Q, basic, 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 beginners, all-purpose. And, believe it or not, BASIC was actually created in the 1960s. Oh, yes, it was. My mother was actually someone who learned how to program computers. That's right. Program computers in the 1960s going into the 70s. It seems weird, man, that in the 1960s, my mother was working with computers. But she was. And, I mean, just take a look at movies from the TV shows from the 1960s. And think to yourself, what were computers doing back then? What were computers doing back then? So, beginners, all-purpose, symbolic instruction code, as we were taught as kids, BASIC. We started off with BASIC. I wasn't born in the 1960s. I was born in the 1970s. And so the point is that in less than 4 minutes, Google Glass is going to make a huge comeback. Now, why do I firmly believe that and know that? How is it that I know that? Some people think Google Glass, that's kind of like that experiment where they had created those eyeglasses that you put over your eyes, and people were like accosted, and some of them were relatively like beat up a little bit, bruised up a little bit because people didn't appreciate the fact that someone was wearing the glasses, those glass holes, and they came to be known as glass holes. In other words, assholes who are wearing glasses, who are basically surveilling people in the minds of the opponents to this technology. So you have these glasses made by Google called Google Glass. And Google Glass is essentially a human augmentation because it augments the human species. It does. It augments the human being. Human beings put on these glasses. They're connected to the internet. It's almost kind of sort of like a neural interface. Now, it's not jacking into your neocortex or your cerebral cortex or your spine or your human body per se, but it does allow for an optical interface. Yes. Again, doesn't connect to the cerebellum, doesn't connect to the spinal column, it doesn't connect to any part of the brain as a wet wire from cyberpunk culture would be depicted or portrayed in some movie or book, story. No, but nonetheless, it's an overlay because it's in front of your face, and then it goes into your brain because you can see the data. So it's definitely an optical interface via light energy, right? So Google created this technology, and some people criticize Google and we're basically like, how dare you create this technology? It's very intrusive. It's very invasive. Well, listen, it's going to make a huge comeback. Oh man, don't think Google Glass ever went away. No, it did not. And when it comes back, oh my goodness, OMG, it's going to come back so hard. Such a pendulum swing. You will be surprised because I told you that it would happen. Now, how do I know? Well, I know because I knew that it was going to happen in the first place. Oh yeah, man. Those technologies, wearables, augments, we're just getting started. And guess who started it? Guggen. That's right. My new name for Google, Guggen. Googn, the domain of Guggen. Yeah, it's right out of it's right out of that episode of SG Stargate. I've talked about it before, and I'm guessing that someone at Google actually mapped it in the real world to be just like that show episode. Yeah, there's an episode of Stargate. Spoiler alert. They travel to a world, off-world, where it's like Earth. It's Earth, and everyone is jacked in to the net, to the grid, to the web. Everyone is webbed in, jacked in, plugged in. And if you don't have this optical device, then you don't function in that world, on that world, in that universe. Now, because all of your knowledge. Now, I know there are other storylines that predate, and I read one, and I'll give you an example. I read it when I was a child. Monica Hughes. I'm very well read. I'm an avid reader. So I read books before the internet existed. That's what I did. Yeah, I'm not autistic, but I was borderline autistic. I used to sit in libraries all day from sun up to sundown and read books. And I was a member of book clubs, and I was also a young writer. So I was part of the Young Writer Workshop series in the Pacific Northwest, Puget Sound. And I actually wrote a book called My First Time that's actually at Pacific Lutheran University on one of the bookshelves. Yeah, it's in their collection. That's right. I was invited to be part of that program. Monica Hughes. Yes, Devil on My Back. Monica Hughes, Devil on My Back. I read the book. My cousin Rizzo read the book. My mother, who was in the military at the time, she read the book. And there's a sequel to it as well. Devil on My Back, man, was a cold book. Now, I was in junior high school when I read Devil on My Back. Now, think about this. There was no internet then. No internet. Albeit, the internet was technically created by, guess who? Tim Berners-Lee. Yeah. So the Department of Defense created ARPANET, 1969. You know how many? Do you even realize how many university students I meet in PhD programs and who have PhDs in computer science, and they don't even know the history of the ARPANET, I'm fucking totally serious, man. They're like, yeah, I heard something about that. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, wow. Oh, you have? Yeah, you heard a little something about it? And some of them have not even heard of ARPANET. And I'm like, wow. We live in an amazing world, man. We live in an amazing world. Listen, I'll give you an example. It's incontrovertible, irrefutable. Ask a college university student now, someone who's in college, who's in a computer science, computer programming, IT program, any type of computational sciences. Ask that person. Doesn't matter their year in school. If they're an undergraduate or if they're a graduate student enrolled formally matriculated in a program right now. Ask them what programming language, if any, they've learned. You know what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you Python. Yeah, because it's the standard now. But when I was in college, I mean, technically I'm still a student, ongoing, and will forever and always be. Because I love academia. I love higher education. And quite frankly, man, I don't really ever want to leave school. I mean, shit, I can learn whatever I need to learn from the internet, and I can study at pretty much any college in the world online, a lot of times for free. So, yeah, top universities. So I'm in some electrical engineering programs right now. Yeah, and studying aerospace and molecular electronics. So the point is, when I was in college, my early years of college, right around the time that I had completed half of a mathematics degree program, I had learned Java programming in a formal classroom setting. Java programming. Before you heard about full stack and all this kind of stuff, and I used Eclipse as an integrated development environment. Yes, IDE. So Eclipse was what I was using for Java, and Python was unfucking heard of. Now everything is Python. And when you talk about Java, when you mention Java, some of these kids are like, I've heard something about that. And I'm talking about college university students enrolled in formal degree programs. I've heard something about, and I'm like, Java runs the internet. And they're like, oh, right. And I'm like, yeah. So, and then they talk about cybersecurity. And I'm like, well, have you learned C? And they're like, oh, no, we haven't gone over that. And I'm like, you're in a cybersecurity program and you haven't studied any C at all? And they're like, no. And I'm just like, so you're completely 100% unfamiliar with C? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, who the fuck is your professor? These are top universities. So, the internet, created in 1969, was the beginning of the internet. But then you have Tim Berners-Lee, computer scientist. Let's take a look at his background here. Let's look at what is this? Let's go to Wikipedia. Pops right up. Let's see what Wikipedia says about Tim Berners-Lee. Let's check it out. I'm multitasking. Give me one moment here. My device is trying to select a printer and do some weird shit that I didn't ask it to do. I'm not printing anything. Motherfucking computer system. I am flight navigating here. So let me switch lanes. Yeah, multitasking here. So what does it say? It says, born 8 June 1955. So this predates the 1960s. Let's see. Also known as Tim BL, T-I-M-B-L, Tim BL, is an English engineer and computer scientist best known as the inventor of the World Wide Web. He is a professorial fellow of computer science at the University of Oxford and a professor at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Says Berners-Lee proposed an information management system on 12 March 1989, then implemented the first successful communication between a hypertext transfer protocol HTTP client and server via the internet in mid-November of the same year. Right. But what about ARPANET that predates this technology of hypertext transfer protocol? Let's look up ARPANET. Now, we're gonna flash backward and forward. We're gonna get to the part about CERN because a lot of people don't know that CERN was involved in the creation of the internet. Now, when you were in school, if you heard anything about ARPANET, you're like, yeah, that was 1969, right? if you're studious, if you're prodigious, if you paid attention, you heard about ARPANET, and you know about ARPANET, right? Right? But did you ever hear about CERN having a hand in the creation of the internet? What? When did that come to be a reality? Yeah, CERN, where the Large Hadron Collider is located. Why would the Large Hadron Collider and CERN have anything to do with the creation of the internet? When's the first time you ever heard about CERN? Just asking. Was it when you were like living back in the 1970s and 80s? No, I don't think you ever heard anything about CERN in Geneva back in the 1970s and fucking 80s. I'm pretty sure you never did. And also the Large Hadron, the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, didn't fucking exist back then. So, given that you found out, most of you, about the existence of CERN relatively recently, like, let's say, late 1990s moving forward into the 2000s, well, according to the internet, Timothy Berners-Lee created the modern internet, and there was, of course, ARPANET, which is DARPA, before today and today's modern internet. Where the fuck does CERN come into play? How is CERN all of a sudden behind the creation of the internet? You were never told that. That was never part of history before, was it? Anytime you heard of ARPANET, you heard of ARPANET. Where in relation to ARPANET was CERN? Where did it ever fucking say CERN? Most people didn't even ever hear about CERN until it was announced that scientists were working on a Large Hadron Collider. Yeah, Switzerland, right? It's the first time you ever fucking heard about CERN, most of you. So where is it in history from the textbooks before? Yeah, the textbooks of the 1980s and the 1970s. Where does it say, in addition to the ARPANET having created the first internet? That's right, internet connection at the at the Department of Defense, ARPANET. Where does it say next to that also took place at CERN? Yeah, it doesn't, does it? So check this out. It says right here, the ARPANET, Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, was an early packet switching network and the first network to implement the TCP/IP protocol suite. Both technologies became the technical foundation of the internet. Says it was closed in 1990. Government never fucking closes programs or projects. Let's look a little bit deeper. Let's look a little bit deeper here. It says it was established 1969. That's 50 years ago. Yeah. I don't see Timothy Berners-Lee here. I don't see his name anywhere in relation to this. No Timothy Berners-Lee. No CERN, no Switzerland, and I'm scanning through every motherfucking paragraph. Now I'm down to creation. Guess what it says? In February 1966, Bob Taylor successfully lobbied ARPA's director, Charles M. Hertzfeld, to fund a network project. What a fucking coincidence. Then it goes on to say, I'm just saying, don't take my word for it. It says in February, I quote, in February 1966, Bob Taylor. Who's Bob Taylor? Who the fuck is Bob Taylor? His name's not even clickable. Someone named Bob Taylor successfully lobbied ARPA's director, Charles M. Hertzfeld, to fund a network project? What kind of network project are we talking about? Well, it's going to tell us. Herzfeld redirected funds in the amount of $1 million from a ballistic missile defense program to Taylor's budget. Taylor hired Larry Roberts. Wow, those names, Bob Taylor and Larry Roberts. What a fucking coincidence. Now, check it out. Charles M. Herzfeld, his name is clickable. Larry Roberts' name is clickable. But for some reason, Bob Taylor's name is not clickable. Who the fuck is Bob Taylor? Having these monies redirected from a space missile defense program into ARPANET. So let's continue. Taylor hired Larry Roberts as a program manager in the ARPA Information Processing Technologies Office in January 1967 to work on the ARPANET. In April 1967, Roberts held a design session on technical standards. The initial standards for identification and authentication of users, transmission of characters, and error checking and retransmission procedures were discussed. At the meeting, Wesley Clark proposed mini computers called interface message processors. Now keep in mind, Timothy Berners-Lee is not in this equation here at all. And it says that Wesley Clark proposed mini computers called interface message processors, IMPs, should be used to interface to the network rather than the large mainframes that would be the nodes of the ARPANET. Roberts modified the ARPANET plan to incorporate Clark's suggestion. The plan was presented at the ACM Symposium in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in October 1967. Donald Davies' work on packet switching and the NPL network presented by a colleague, Roger Scantlebury, came to the attention of ARPANET developers at this conference. Larry Roberts at ARPA applied Davies' concept of packet switching for the ARPANET and sought input from Paul Baran and Leonard Kleinrock. Building on his earlier work on queuing theory, Kleinrock modeled the performance of packet switch networks which underpinned the development of the ARPANET. The NPL network was using line speeds of 768 kbit a second, and the proposed line speed for the ARPANET was upgraded from 2.4 kbit per second to 50 kbit per second. By mid-1968, Roberts had prepared a complete plan for the computer network and gave a report to Taylor on June 3, that's 3 June, who approved it on 21 June. After approval by ARPA, a request for quotation, RFQ, was issued for 140 potential bidders. Most computer science companies regarded the ARPA proposal as outlandish, and only 12 submitted bids to build a network. Of the 12, ARPA regarded only 4 as top-ranked contractors. At year's end, ARPA considered only 2 contractors and awarded the contract to build the network to Bolt, Beranek, and Newman Incorporated, BBN, on 7 April 1969. The initial 7-person BBN team were much aided by the technical specificity of their response to the ARPA RFQ, and thus quickly produced the first working system. That was 7 April 1969. This team was led by Frank Hart and included Robert Kahn. The BBN proposed network closely followed Roberts' ARPA plan, a network composed of small computers called interface message processors, or IMPs, IMPs. Similar to the later concept of routers that functioned as gateways interconnecting local resources. At each site, the IMPs performed store and forward packet switching functions and were interconnected with leased lines via telecommunication data sets, modems, that is, are, which initial data rates of 56 kbit per second. The host computers were connected to the imps via custom serial communication interfaces. Now, for those of you who have studied computer science, you know that serial interfaces is really fucking slow. Okay? So who was Bob Taylor? Why is his name not clickable? February 1966, someone named Bob Taylor lobbied ARPA. The director, Charles M. Herzfeld. Why are all these other people's names clickable, but the person who lobbied ARPA to create ARPANET and bring it up to spec to be what it later became, to become what it is? Well, who is that person? I'm just asking, like, all these other names are clickable. According to Stephen J. Lukasik, who, his name is clickable as well, as deputy director and director of DARPA, 1967 and 1974, was, quote, the person who signed most of the checks for ARPANET's development. Huh. Interesting. And again, I don't see anything here about Timothy Berners-Lee. Nope, nothing. Nope, nothing at all. The initial ARPANET consisted of 4 imps. University of California, Los Angeles. The Augmentation Research Center at Stanford Research Institute, now SRI. University of California, Santa Barbara. The University of Utah School of Computing. The first successful host-to-host connection on the ARPANET was made between SRI programmer Bill Duvall at 10:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on 29 October 1969. That's 6:30 UTC. On 30 October 1969, Klein connected from UCLA's SDS Sigma 7 host computer in Bolter Hall room 3420 to the Stanford Research Institute's SDS 940 host computer. Klein typed the command, login, but initially the SDS 940 crashed. About an hour later, after Duvall adjusted parameters on the SDS 940, Klein tried again and successfully logged in to the SDS 940. Hence, the first 2 characters successfully transmitted over the ARPANET were IO. The first permanent ARPANET link was established on 21 November 1969 between the imp at UCLA and the imp at the Stanford Research Institute. By 5 December 1969, the initial 4-node network was established. Who the fuck is Bob Taylor? And you can clearly see that Timothy Berners-Lee is not here. Not here. Not here. So, let's get to Timothy Berners-Lee. CERN Internet created. Let's get to the history of how CERN somehow had something to do with the creation of the internet, when you just heard how the internet was created. And there's no mention of CERN. Oh, look at this. Timothy Berners-Lee, a British scientist at CERN, invented the World Wide Web in 1989. Yeah, he created the World Wide Web, WWW, but he didn't create the internet. Yeah. So, let's bring that up from CERN's website. I give props to Timothy Berners-Lee for taking the web to the next level. But he didn't create the web. Not the internet in its infancy. Not ARPANET. So it says right here, this is CERN's website. Quote, Timothy Berners-Lee, or Tim Berners-Lee, a British scientist at CERN, invented the World Wide Web, WWW, in 1989. The web was originally conceived and developed to meet the demand for automatic information sharing between scientists and universities and institutes around the world. Right, which is what ARPANET was created for, so that scientists at disparate, remote locations, opposite poles, could communicate and transmit information to each other and between and among. It says CERN is not an isolated laboratory, but rather a focus for an extensive community that includes more than 10,000 scientists from over 100 countries. Although they typically spend some time on the CERN site, the scientists usually work at universities and national laboratories in their home countries. Good contact is therefore essential. Okay, then it goes on to say how the web began. Well, I know how it began. It began with ARPANET, but there's no mention of ARPANET here. It says, quote, Berners-Lee wrote the first proposal for the World Wide Web at CERN in 1989. 69 to 79 to 89. 20 years prior, the real first internet was created. But it says here, first proposal for the World Wide Web. Further refining the proposal with Belgian systems engineer Robert Cailliau. I don't know how his name is pronounced. C-A-I-L, Cailliau. C-A-I-L, 2 L's, I-A-U. The following year. On 12 November 12 Project. What do you know? The November 12 Project. Might as well refer to this as the November 12 Project because it says on 12 November 1990, the pair published a formal proposal outlining principal concepts and defining important terms behind the web. What do you know? The November 12 Project. Yeah. The document described a hypertext project called World Wide Web. What a coincidence. In which a web of hypertext documents could be viewed by browsers. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I wonder what browsers the U.S. government was using in 1969. I'm just saying, computer screens that were receiving information from ARPANET. Just saying. By the end of 1990, prototype software for a basic web system was already being demonstrated. I wonder what classified systems were in existence then that predate what Timothy Berners-Lee created. Had to have been something. U.S. military had to have had... Oh, that's right. They had ARPANET. An interface was provided to encourage its adoption and applied to the CERN Computer Center's documentation. Its help, service, and Usenet groups, concepts already familiar to people at CERN. The first examples of this interface were developed on NeXT, N-E, and then capital XT computers. info.cern.ch was the address of the world's first website and web server running on a NeXT, N-E-X-T computer at CERN. The first web page address was http://info.cern.ch/hypertext/www, and then the rest of it on my browser is obscured, but I am copying it. Copy, URL copied, pasting. So after cern.ch, it goes /hypertext/www/theproject.html. This was the November 12 project going there now. So when one travels to visits that project, it says, quote, World Wide Web. The World Wide Web W3 is a wide area hypermedia information retrieval initiative aiming to give universal access to a large universe of documents. Oh, interesting language. A large universe of documents. Everything there is online about W3. Everything there is online about W3 is linked directly or indirectly to this document, including an executive summary of the project mailing list, policy, W3 News, frequently asked questions. Pointers to the world's online information, subjects, W3 servers, etc. On your browser, you are using software products. A list of W3 project components and their current state: line mode, X11, Viola, next step, servers, tools, mail, robot, library, technical, bibliography, people. A list of people involved in the project. Let's click on that. Let's see. Who's involved? Carl Barker, Tim Berners-Lee. It looks like Ilko van Asperen, Robert Kaliu, however his name is pronounced. Dan Connolly, Peter Doberstein, Urwise team, Elaine Favor, David Foster, Jean-Francois Graf, Tony Johnson, Paul Coons, dismissed, Willem van Leeuwen, Nicola Pello, Bernd Polerman, and then it says Arthur Secret, a student at CERN during August and September 1992. Arthur wrote the first W3 Oracle gateway. His name's Arthur Secret. Who's Bob Taylor? And who's Arthur Secret? Jonathan Streets, Pei Wei, Bebo White, it was either Bebo or Bebo, and James White's Carver. Interesting. So, CERN, creation of the internet. No mention of ARPANET. It's interesting. ARPANET, internet, history. Yeah. The precursor to the internet was jump-started. It's from Live Science. In the early days of computing history in 1969 with the U.S. Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPANET. ARPANET history, Bob Taylor. Who is this guy, Bob Taylor, who lobbied the government back then? Well, here he is right here. He lived to be 85. He's the man who funded the ARPANET, the military precursor of the internet. It says right here, 15 April 2017 from Medium. I wonder why his name isn't clickable on Wikipedia. That's weird. He's a computer scientist. Oh, wait, hold on. All of a sudden, now there's a page for Robert William Taylor. Texas, born 10 February 1932. That's weird. Why would his name not be clickable to this article here? He was an American internet pioneer who led teams that made major contributions to the personal computer and other related technologies. He was director of ARPA's Information Processing Techniques Office from 1965 through 1969, founder and later manager of Xerox PARC's Computer Science Laboratory from 1970 through 1983, and founder and manager of Digital Equipment Corporation's Systems Research Center until 1996. He passed away in Woodside, California. Alma mater, Southern Methodist University, University of Texas, known for internet pioneer, computer networking, and communication systems, modern personal computing. 3 children, many awards. And it even says, uniquely, Taylor had no formal academic training or research experience in computer science. No formal academic training or research experience in computer science. It says, Severo Ornstein likened Taylor to a concert pianist without fingers, a perception reaffirmed by historian Leslie Berlin. Taylor could hear a faint melody in the distance, but he could not play it himself. He knew whether to move up or down the scale to approximate the sound. He could recognize when a note was wrong, but he needed someone else to make the music. Says Taylor was known for his high-level vision. The internet is not about technology. It's about communication. The internet connects people who have shared interests, ideas, and needs, regardless of geography. Yeah. Before Timothy Berners-Lee. And it says right here, in 1962, he was invited to join NASA's Office of Advanced Research and Technology as a program manager assigned to the Manned Flight Control and Display Division after submitting a research proposal for a flight control simulation display. Taylor worked for NASA in Washington, D.C., while the Kennedy administration was backing scientific projects such as the Apollo program for a manned moon landing. Like Taylor, okay, let me see. Wow. A lot of stuff going on at SRI. What we need to find out from here is we need to find out how ARPANET connected to Berkeley. ARPANET Berkeley. Because I have heard no mention thus far of ARPANET in relation to Berkeley. And there is a history there. There is a history that exists. ARPANET Berkeley. Boom. There it is. Okay. Where is mention of Berkeley? All right. Right here. It's from lawrenceberkeleylab.gov. It says Berkeley's lab computing and networking achievements. 1974. LBNL connects its CDC 6600 computer to ARPANET, making it the first online supercomputer. What do you fucking know, man? What do you fucking know? Now ask someone who's in a computer science program at any university, at any level, and ask them, when was the very first supercomputer connected to the internet? When? I bet you they don't know. I bet you they don't know the college, the university, and I bet you they don't know when it happened. Now, I knew of that history, and that's why we just Googled it. And that's why I mentioned it prior to actually Googling it. How could people be in these computer science fucking programs and not know about ARPANET? Not know about CERN, Timothy Berners-Lee? How could they not know about Java? The lineage, the timeline, the history of it fucking all. They're using a technology that they don't even know where it comes from. Most of them, a lot of them. Seriously, they don't fucking have a clue. They're on a different time frame. Even though the information is Googleable, in 43 minutes and 44 seconds, you just heard what you wouldn't even fucking hear in at most universities nowadays. Because they don't cover it, man. All they do is go over the practical concepts, it's just topical in terms of what tools need to be used now to get the job done, which is Python. Yeah, big data. That's what you hear about. You don't really hear the actual backstory of the internet. And there's so much to it. There's so much to it that a lot of people they don't even bother. They just don't even fucking know how it came to be, how all of it came to be. They don't know about Bob Taylor. They don't know about the November 12 project. They don't know about ARPANET. They don't know about Tim Berners-Lee and CERN in Switzerland. They just don't fucking have a clue. Yeah, and they talk all this shit about how they know all this shit about computers and the internet, but they really fucking don't. They know a smidget. Yeah, they know a smidget of the shit. So, my mother was using computers back in the 1960s. I was using computers in the 1970s. to the 80s, 70s to 80s to 90s to the 2000s. 10, 20, 30 plus fucking years of tinkering with, playing around with, toying with, working with computers. I have a little bit of experience. Yeah, I've worked on military computer networks. Yeah, I have a little bit of experience. You know, man, these motherfuckers, man, these motherfuckers nowadays, man, these hot shots, man, the shit that they talk, their pretentiousness, they're so fucking cool, man. Yeah, they're so fucking cool. Well, I'm the one who's telling you what you're not hearing in mainstream, because when I was in a program in academia, we looked at futures out to the year 2038 and beyond. When's the last time you heard about Google Glass? Probably like fucking 10 years ago. I'm telling you, when no one else is saying this on the internet, Google Glass is about to make a huge comeback. And it's about to be the most popular thing. And everyone's going to be doing it, man. Oh, yeah, they're going to streamline it. Oh, it's going to look better than ever. Oh, the wearables are going to get fucking great. They're going to be fucking streamlined, slimline, all moderned up, like barely weighs anything, just kind of like goes on, looks stylish, and ain't no one going to be calling anyone glass holes anymore. No, they're not. You know why? Because it's going to become widely accepted as people link in, connect up in a whole new way of human transhumanism, human augmentation. Oh man, it's coming. It's right here. Yeah. Who else is talking about this, man? Where do you hear about this in mainstream media? When's the last time you heard about Google Glass? Why would I be talking about it? Because I fucking already knew in advance, man. I knew when they launched Google Glass that there would be resistance to it by some at first, there would be opponents to the technology, and that it would kind of sort of go away for a while, and then it would make a huge fucking comeback on some unprecedented level of reality. Who else has said this? Hello? Who else has said this? Yeah, I gave this dissertation in less than 48 minutes on One Sir Grove. Thanks for tuning in, and watch how it plays out. I promise you, it's going to happen. It already happened before on another timeline, and it's going to happen again.